Hey everyone, Robert here, author of Expansion Mastery, the practical guide to living a fully engaged life. Are you ready to start living your life to the fullest? Are you ready and willing to transform yourself and your life from ordinary to extraordinary? Well, I'm here today to help you do just that. Welcome, my friends, to the Fully Engaged Life. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today's episode is going to feature some tips for success in spiritual practices. I'm going to share this in the hopes that it helps you really persevere in your practices and have the utmost success. But first, I would like to remind you to visit me at www.expansionmastery.com. You can go there and pick up an autographed copy of Expansion Mastery. You can also pick up the newly revised and expanded edition of my ebook. Check out some great articles and other content that are on the site. So jump over to www.expansionmastery.com and check everything out. Okay, let's get to today's topic. I have shared a lot of practices in over 300 episodes now, and every once in a while I like to revisit some helpful tips for your success, because that's what this is about. I want to do everything I can possibly do to help you succeed. So I'm going to break this into two different categories today, and one is before you even begin these practices, here are some tips to make sure you can succeed with them. And the second part will offer more helpful hints and advice for things that you can do while you are engaging your practices in order to better ensure your success. Okay, let's go ahead and delve into this first section. These tips are going to be helpful before you even begin any of the practices. And don't worry if you've already jumped in and started working with them. That's fine. These are just some things you can factor in. But I find a lot of people fail before they even begin. And these are some of the reasons why and what you can do about it. Okay, number one. Take the time to reflect on whether or not you are truly ready and especially willing to begin this sort of practice. A lot of people get excited about it and they jump in, but they never stop to think about if they're actually really at a point where they are ready and most of all willing to engage these types of practices. So do yourself a favor and take the time to reflect on that. And this is a lot tougher than it sounds. It seems kind of trivial. Trust me, it is not. And the reason that I say that it's tougher than it sounds is because in order to reflect on this, we must be brutally honest with ourselves and not simply answer from our mind's desire. This is in itself a challenge because we might be surprised just how much time every single day we spend lying to ourselves. And we lie to ourselves more than we ever lie to anyone else. And I saw a study done last week that showed that people in general tell up to 100 lies every day. Can you imagine? And I'm willing to bet that the majority of that, or the true number, if we factor in how we lie to ourselves, is substantially greater. So take the time, sit back, and ask yourself the hard question. Am I really, truly ready and willing to embark on the spiritual path? And if you feel that the answer is yes, fantastic. It's time to move forward then, isn't it? If, however, you have any sort of hesitation arise whatsoever, then it's a good indication that maybe you need to sort some things out before you step into this spiritual path. It's better to get those issues straightened out before you embark on the path so that you don't get started and then become discouraged or fail. Number 2, begin to prepare yourself for your practices by learning how to empty your mind of all preconceived notions. This is one of the biggest reasons for failure in my observation. As people experience truth for themselves, they can become easily frightened and run back to their old comfortable habits and beliefs. I've seen this time and time again. So make sure as you are getting ready to step onto the spiritual path and begin these practices, take some time to just be aware of what beliefs around such things that you have constructed and learn to let them go. Empty your mind of all those preconceived notions, because the practices at one point or another are sure to clash with these beliefs that you have created to whatever degree. If you can empty your mind of these preconceived beliefs, then you're free to actually have an honest, direct experience. You see, you've heard me use the phrase countless times, direct personal experience. That's what true, authentic spirituality entails. We have to be able to have a direct experience. A lot of times people don't understand what that is. As long as we have preconceived ideas and beliefs, thoughts and feelings rolling around in our head from the past, we are not having a direct experience. That experience is being shaded by all of these other things already occupying my mind. See, we need to be able to get rid of that so our mind isn't comparing and contrasting to things that we already know, past stored images, thoughts, beliefs, so on and so forth. So we need to be able to set that aside to truly have a direct experience. Otherwise, it's not direct because there is interference from the middleman of our mind. And then, of course, the personal part is that we are experiencing it for ourselves. For instance, we get to observe that our mind actually does engage a particular mental process, and then we get to observe how our particular mind actually does do that, right? That's the personal aspect. And then the experience is what is actually happening within the practice itself. So that's what's meant by that, and we need to have that. So we have to focus on the direct part of that. And by emptying our mind of any preconceived beliefs that we cling to, whether we're aware of it or not, it truly helps us open up to have an honest, true, direct experience. Number 3, before you start any of your practices, make sure that you're not going to be interrupted. There are so many distractions these days with so many things, and everybody's lives are so busy. It's very easy to have our practice interrupted. So yes, I always say, turn the phone off and put it away somewhere for a minute. And that's where you get the most pushback because everyone is so incredibly addicted to those things. They're afraid to turn it off. Well, if you're afraid to turn your phone off, then you stand a little chance of actually succeeding in a spiritual practice until you can overcome that. I mean, the practices are just 20 minutes, a half an hour, maybe an hour, if that. And if you're concerned because you have something going on in your life or your job, then schedule your time to perform these practices around that, right? It's pretty easy. But put all these types of distractions aside. If you want to succeed, this is what you'll need to do. These interruptions can cause your practices to fail. And in some cases, with certain practices, more so in the advanced practice category, they can actually be very detrimental to you. So make sure you have a quiet place that you can perform your practices where you won't be bothered by anyone or anything. You'll be able to go back to it all as soon as you're finished. Number 4, make the choice beforehand, before you get started with these practices. Make the choice to succeed and make sure that you already set your resolve so you will not quit when things get uncomfortable. And trust me, if you're doing any authentic spirituality, it will get uncomfortable. Real spirituality, the real spiritual path, requires a sense of courage, patience, and perseverance. Be prepared to be involved for the long haul. I've found this to be very helpful for people when you set this ahead of time. When you tell yourself, no, I'm going to succeed and I'm going to persevere regardless of how uncomfortable things get. I'm going to keep pushing through. If you can say that and really mean it, your chances of success will increase. Number 5, summon the courage to face the truth about everything you may encounter through these practices. One of the key aspects is to keep a calm heart and an undisturbed mind. This is really critical. All too often, people reach a particular point and start to see and experience truth, the very thing that they're seeking, that they profess to be ready and willing to experience. However, when they do, they can't handle what they actually do experience, and they end up tucking their tail between their legs and running away. I've witnessed this numerous times over the past decades, and trust me, this happens a lot. We have to be strong enough to face the truth, whatever truth that is. But that's what this stuff reveals. It peels away all of the illusions, and then it peels away all of the delusions, and it leaves us with the truth. And the truth is not often what we actually think it is. Not maybe what we want it to be, and that can frighten people a lot. So make sure you're ready to face the truths that you experience for yourself. Number 6, the final one in this section. Be prepared to have your life change. In some cases, perhaps quite dramatically. I know mine did. Just know it always changes for the better. The universe is always there to help you, to give you the experience you need. Now, it doesn't mean that these changes won't be uncomfortable or even painful at times. But this, too, is part of the process on the spiritual path. You see, if we never do anything with what we learn, if we never put it into effect in our life, then we haven't accomplished anything. A lot of people get addicted to the act of the practice, and that's all they want to do is hide themselves away and do their practices, and yet they fail to implement what they learn into their daily life. They fail to implement any real sense of change in themselves or their life. And when we do that, we fail to have the ability to then make the changes that transform ourselves and our lives from ordinary to extraordinary. So there's a few things for you to consider if you are about to embark on the spiritual path and engage in some of these practices. I've found that these things helped tremendous, and the things that I lacked going through it, those are some of the things that I learned that I like to share with students and clients, and I hope they will benefit you as well. You know, if we are going to embark on the spiritual path, and that path is real, authentic spirituality, the need for courage, the ability to make consistent effort, as well as patience and perseverance, are all very, very necessary. And the difference between real spirituality and the all too common fake, foofy type spirituality that we see. You can tell the difference in the spiritual training, because if it lacks the need for courage and consistent effort doesn't seem to be an issue, and really doesn't even address anything that requires patience or perseverance, it's a pretty good indication that whatever it's doing is pointless. It's going to be fake. And it's always sad to see these people that fall victim to this, because so many of them are nice people. And it's difficult to see these supposedly spiritual people as they are paralyzed by fear and unable to make even simple decisions in their life. This means whatever you're doing is actually not benefiting you, and it may be harming you mentally. And I witness this all the time, where people seem to be afraid to make even simple decisions in their life, at least without contacting their fake guru, their spirit guide, some crystals, tarot cards, pendulums, or, of course, their master conjurer, right? If we're going to embark on the real, authentic spiritual path, I think it's time to grow up and step away from the fantasy so we might find truth. And in the process, we might just find a little bit of maturity and mental stability as well. All right, on to the second part. These are tips that you can apply once you are actually engaging the practices. Okay? Hopefully they help you. Number 1, don't expect anything. While you're engaged in the practice, don't go into it with expectations. This kind of relates to what we said beforehand, right? But this is in regards to whatever specific practice you are engaged in. Don't allow yourself to have any type of expectation. Sometimes when we perform a spiritual practice, nothing happens. We make no progress. Nothing really happens at all. Some practices take time. We have to be patient, and we have to keep engaging them until something actually happens. Sometimes with these practices, we're not even exactly sure what's supposed to happen. We'll know it when it does, I can assure you. So don't have expectations. Simply sit or move, depending on the practice, without trying to do anything, without trying to make an actual outcome. This is especially important if you're doing a meditative practice, such as an observation practice, where you're observing something, for instance, a type of mental process that's taking place. You don't want to expect what it is. Allow it to be what it is, so then you ensure that you're having a direct experience. And the same goes for actual meditation. You never want to go into meditation itself with any sort of expectation, because this alone can actually cause failure in your meditation practice. And this leads us to number 2. Don't force anything. Just allow whatever happens to happen. If nothing happens, then nothing happens. Forcing something will lead to a false experience and ultimately failure or worse. This is especially true for meditation. When you are doing actual meditation, we do not try to do anything. We don't even try not to try to do anything. There's nothing to try. There's nothing to be done in actual meditation. And if you're doing a meditative practice where there are things that we are working on, the important thing is to avoid trying to force a particular outcome that we believe it should be or that we desire. If you are observing a particular mental process or internal process, Just allow yourself to observe whatever happens without your interference, without trying, without forcing. This gives you an honest outcome and true experience. Number 3, this is a difficult one for people, and this is where the patience thing comes in. Don't rush anything. Don't be in a hurry to get through these. The spiritual practices are not something for us to get through. They are a way of living that allow us to change who we are, what we are, how we are, and get closer to who we truly are, our true consciousness. We are able to get closer to that in this lifetime, in this body, and to ultimately attain a sense of awakening. Although basic guidelines of time are often offered with a practice, the key is to ultimately relax and allow things to happen on their own time, not yours. It's like anything else. The universe does not act on your time, the time you want. It acts within its own time. So it should not be any surprise whatsoever that the same thing applies to our spiritual practices. Number 4, and this one too is a little tricky. We want to avoid clinging to or rejecting anything that comes out of the practices. We don't want to resist any aspect of our experience. Everything is happening for a reason. We would like to avoid attempting to change something in order to soothe our ego. In order to do that, we don't want to judge ourselves or our experience. Just observe it for what it is, and along with that, develop the ability to actually disassociate from it. We want to be able to detach from these outcomes that would have us clinging to or rejecting any of it. We want to simply be able to accept everything that arises. As much as we can, we want to be gentle with ourselves and learn to view all problems as merely challenges. That's why they are listed, all of the exercises are listed as challenges in my book. So this is the 4th. Make sure that we don't start clinging to or rejecting anything. We don't want to cling to things because the mind will start to create all kinds of different new beliefs, some of the things we're trying to get rid of. And we don't want to reject anything because then we are denying the truth. And so we want to be able to just be in that space in between, in the middle. See, clinging to and rejecting are two different ends of the spectrum, right? They're polar opposites. What we want to do is just accept, nothing more, nothing less. And that's right in the middle. Number 5, let go of everything. Now, I know this is another one people have a tendency to dislike. But we have to relax and flow with whatever happens within our practices. We have to be able to flow with the changes. Yet, we should maintain a sense of inquiry and investigation while we do so. Question everything while taking nothing for granted. And we don't want to waste time pondering. The idea is not to figure things out. We're not trying to figure it out. We're trying to observe so we can understand. The need to figure everything out and be clever and things like that, that's all just egoic desire. Those things do not aid us in spiritual practices. This can be challenging at first, but once you get this, it's very freeing. And again, it gives us that ability to have a true, honest, direct experience. And that leads us to the final one, the 6th one in this particular set, which is to have a direct personal experience. Remember, direct means no mental preconceptions. Okay, so we don't want to go into anything clinging to a belief. When the mind creates a perception based upon past beliefs, thoughts, images, emotions, and so forth, it has ceased to be a direct personal experience. Authentic spiritual practices are all based in direct personal experiences. Please use that knowledge to make sure that what you're doing is real. If it isn't a direct personal experience, it's not authentic spirituality, and it's not going to benefit you. So we want to make sure that we have that well in place. And just as a final note in this particular section, this is something important to understand. If you find yourself using intellect, your mind and your thoughts, to seek awakening, it's incredibly likely that the mind will only become more confused. Much of what you are going to experience is beyond the comprehension of the mind. Now, the same thing happens when you try to use the mind to stop your thoughts from wandering. Meddling and misdirecting intentions only serve to complicate your experience. If you try to use your own mind to stop wandering thoughts, the movement of your mind, it will always lead to failure, because the very act of trying is moving the mind, right? If I'm trying not to think or not to allow my mind to wander, that is movement of the mind. So now you're engaging the mind. It's like they say, you can't create a solution with the same sense of mind that created the problem. So we want to learn to allow instead of trying so hard. Trying is forcing. And when you use force, your ego will resist you. So in order to help the ego just dissolve away, try to allow. And remember, this is especially important with things like meditation, where we don't want to think. So whenever we try to do something or we try not to do something, you're thinking. And that's mental movement. That's what we're trying to avoid. So I hope that helps clarify a little bit more how to engage, especially meditation and your meditative practices, more correctly. And I hope that it provides you with an incredible sense of success. I hope these helpful hints provide some benefit to you in your practice. And remember to relax and have some fun. Enjoy these things. Don't take them so seriously. But at the same time, seriously dedicate yourself to engaging the practices. All right. Hey, everyone, make sure that you help share this podcast and do all the social media stuff. Use the subscribe button and hit the likes and, the little thumbs up, the hearts, the wows, all of that fun stuff. Anything like that always helps us out, and I greatly, greatly appreciate your efforts and your support. Please make sure that we are putting this material in the hands of everyone we possibly can. We really need it. And with the increase in mental issues taking place, we really need something in our lives to help us maintain mental stability, to strengthen our mind more than ever. Until next time, my friends, I wish you the very best and all the success in the world with your practices and, of course, your life. Take care.